My name is Lurok, third observer of the Imperial Archive Fleet. My job is simple. Watch new civilizations, record their mistakes, and report how long it takes before the Empire owns their stars. Usually it takes about 3 weeks. Humans? Well, that was the day the Empire made the worst joke in galactic history. And unfortunately, I was sitting in the room when it happened. The Imperial Hall of Triumph was full that day. Marble pillars, floating banners, gold armor everywhere. If arrogance had a smell, the hall would have needed ventilation. At the center sat Emperor Caldrex, 8 feet tall, 3 glowing eyes. The kind of ruler who believed diplomacy meant giving enemies 2 choices, surrender or surrender faster. We had just finished conquering the Talori Union. Nice people, terrible fighters. One sneeze from the Imperial fleet, and they collapsed like cheap furniture. Then the subject of Earth came up. A tiny blue planet on the edge of the Orion Arm. Primitive, the Council said. Divided, the analysts said. Weak, the General said. And the Emperor? He laughed. Not a polite laugh either. No, this was the kind of laugh that shakes the furniture. Humans, he said. Those emotional bipeds? General Vortek activated the holoscreen. Up popped images of human cities, machines, soldiers, tanks. The room watched. Then someone started chuckling. Then another. Soon the entire War Council was laughing. General Rul said, "They still argue about borders on their own planet." Minister Havoc added, "Their leaders argue on television." Admiral Strawn laughed, so hard he nearly dropped his datapad. They fight each other more than outsiders. More laughter. I quietly continued recording. Historians are trained not to react. But even I raised an eyebrow ridge. Because the human military files looked strange. Very strange. High casualty tolerance. Unusual tactical adaptability. Ridiculous persistence. And the notes from smaller alien nations said the same thing. Humans did not quit. Still, the Empire ignored those reports. Arrogance is louder than intelligence. Emperor Caldrex waved a hand. Fine. Invite their representative. Let them see the strength of the Empire before they make a foolish decision. 3 hours later, she arrived. And that is when things became interesting. The doors opened. In walked one human woman. No armor. No guards. Just a dark uniform, boots, and a calm expression. She was not tall by Imperial standards. Maybe 5'9", but she walked like someone who had already measured the room, the exits, and the weaknesses of every soldier present. My translator identified her. General Mira Vance, Human Defense Command. The Council stared. Admiral Strawn whispered, "That is their negotiator?" General Rul snorted. Maybe they sent their secretary. More laughter. The human stopped in the center of the hall. She looked up at the Emperor. Not with fear. Not with respect. Just observation. Like someone studying an oversized insect. The Emperor leaned forward. "So, human, you represent Earth." She nodded once. "Correct." Her voice was calm. Flat. Controlled. No shaking. No hesitation. That alone made several officers uncomfortable. Caldrex continued. "You understand why you are here?" "Yes." "And you know the Empire controls half this galaxy?" "Yes." The Emperor smiled. That smile meant trouble for entire civilizations. "Then you also know the usual procedure." The human tilted her head slightly. "And that would be, surrender your planet. Provide resources. Accept Imperial oversight. In exchange, we allow your species to continue existing." Some officers chuckled again. General Rul muttered, "Generous offer." The human was silent for a moment. She looked around the massive hall. At the generals. The fleets displayed on the holomap. The arrogance floating in the air. Then she sighed. Actually sighed. Like someone who had just heard the most boring speech of their life. Admiral Strawn whispered, "Did she just sigh?" The human looked back at the Emperor. "You know, we were hoping for a conversation." Caldrex frowned. "You are having one." She shook her head. "No, this is a threat with decorations." A few officers growled. The Emperor's third eye narrowed. "You speak boldly for someone whose planet has one fleet." She shrugged. "We have more. They just are not parked where you can see them." The room burst into laughter again. Even I almost joined. Almost. Because something in her tone was not a bluff. The Emperor leaned back. You expect us to believe that? No. She folded her arms. I expect you to keep laughing. The laughter grew louder. General RUL slapped the table. Oh, this is wonderful. Admiral Strawn leaned forward. Human, do you even understand the scale of our fleets? She nodded. Oh, yes. Then she pointed at the hollow display. You have roughly 12,000 warships in this sector. The room went quiet. Because that number was correct. Classified, but correct. General Vortek frowned. How do you know that? She shrugged again. You broadcast your fleet movements. Your encryption is cute. Several officers looked embarrassed. The Emperor ignored that detail. So you admit you cannot resist us. The human looked directly into his eyes and smiled. Not a friendly smile. The kind of smile predators show when the trap finally snaps shut. You misunderstand. The hall became very quiet. Her voice remained calm, cold, precise. You think we came here to surrender. A pause. Then she spoke the sentence that would later be carved into the archives of six-star systems. You want war. Another pause. She leaned forward slightly. Her eyes did not blink. We will give you war. Silence. Then the room exploded with laughter. Real laughter. Officers doubled over. One minister nearly fell out of his chair. Admiral Strawn wiped tears from his eyes. Oh, that is excellent. General RUL shook his head. A single planet declaring war on the Empire. Even the Emperor chuckled. You amuse us, human. General Mira Vance nodded slowly. Good. Then she tapped a small device on her wrist. My console beeped. Every Imperial screen changed. New signals appeared. Thousands of them. No, not thousands. Hundreds of thousands. Fleet signatures. Hidden jump points activating across the sector. Massive fleets emerging from stealth fields. Weapons powering up. Imperial officers stared in confusion. I checked the data, then checked it again. My voice recorder trembled. Because the numbers were impossible. Human fleet count detected. 280,000 vessels. And rising. Admiral Strawn stopped laughing. General RUL slowly stood up. The Emperor's third eye widened. The human general crossed her arms and spoke again. Oh, did I forget to mention? Her smile widened. Humans fight each other all the time. A pause. But the moment an outsider threatens Earth. She looked around the stun hall. We become very cooperative. Outside the palace windows, the sky filled with human warships. And for the first time in my entire career, the Empire stopped laughing. The laughter stopped so suddenly, the silence felt heavy. Every officer in the Imperial Hall stared at the screens. Fleet markers kept appearing. More ships, more signals, more jump flashes. The sky above the capital world looked like a storm made of metal. I checked the numbers again. 280,000 vessels was only the first wave. The system scanners began updating. 300,000, 340,000. Admiral Strawn whispered very slowly, that is not possible. General RUL said nothing. His claws tapped nervously on the command table. Across the hall, General Mira Vance watched the reactions with quiet patience, like a teacher waiting for students to finish arguing with reality. The Emperor stood. The massive throne creaked behind him. You expect us to believe this is your entire fleet? The human tilted her head. Oh no. Another pause. This is just the fleet that was closest. Someone dropped a datapad. The sound echoed through the chamber. I zoomed the sensor data again. Different ship designs, different weapon signatures, different command frequencies. These fleets had not been built together. They came from different human nations, different alliances, different governments. But somehow, they were operating together. Admiral Strawn finally spoke. How did you unify them? The human general smiled slightly. We did not. The hall grew quiet again. She continued. They still argue. They still compete. Some of them still dislike each other. General RUL frowned. Then how are they fighting under one command? Her answer came instantly. Because you threatened Earth. She pointed toward the display. That planet contains everything we argue about. Our homes. Our families. Our history. Our terrible music. A small shrug. You don't threaten that and expect us to schedule a committee meeting. Several Imperial officers looked uncomfortable because the human fleets were not slowing down. They were moving into perfect attack positions around the system. The Emperor tried to regain control of the room. You still misunderstand the situation. His voice grew louder. The Imperial Navy is the largest force in the galaxy. General Mira Vance nodded. Oh, we know. Then she tapped the wrist device again. More data appeared. Battle simulations. Historical conflicts. Hundreds of them. Planetary wars. Civil wars. Urban combat. Space battles. Ambush tactics. Improvised weapons. Admiral Strawn stared at the screen. These are your wars. Yes, the human replied calmly. General RUL growled. You are showing us your history of failure. The human laughed. Actually laughed. It was not a nervous laugh. It was the laugh of someone hearing a very silly statement. Failure? She shook her head. No, this is our training. The hall went silent again. She pointed to the battle records. We spent thousands of years fighting each other. Tap. We learned how to lose. Tap. We learned how to adapt. Tap. And most importantly, she looked directly at the Emperor. We learned how to keep fighting even when everything goes wrong. Outside the palace windows, human ships continued arriving. More engines. More weapons. The stars looked crowded. I began calculating probability outcomes. Imperial victory chances dropped rapidly. 30%, 22%, 15%. Admiral Strawn noticed the numbers on his console. His voice cracked slightly. This cannot be accurate. The human general leaned against the table. Oh, it gets worse. Another command from her device. Imperial screens filled with additional signals. Subspace transmissions. More human fleets. Still jumping in. Not just from nearby systems. From very far away. Reinforcements. Emergency mobilizations. Civilian vessels refitted for combat. Mining ships converted to missile platforms. Cargo ships carrying weapon pods. General RUL stared at the data. These are not military ships. No, Mira said calmly. Those are volunteers. Several ministers gasped. Volunteers. She nodded. Humans have a strange habit. Admiral Strawn asked quietly, what habit? Her answer was simple. When someone threatens our home, everyone shows up. The Emperor slammed his fist into the throne arm. The entire hall shook. You think numbers will save you? The human did not flinch. No. She gestured toward the windows. Numbers just help. Outside, the first human fleet formation completed its attack line. Weapons glowing. Missile tubes opening. Target locks appearing across Imperial ships. I checked my console again. Human communication channels were strangely relaxed. Pilots joking. Captains arguing. Engineers complaining about fuel efficiency. But beneath all of it, perfect coordination. No panic. No confusion. Just determination. The Emperor slowly sat back down. His third eye dimmed. For the first time, I saw uncertainty in him. He studied the human general carefully. You came alone. She nodded. Yes. Why? She looked around the enormous chamber. At the armies. At the warlords. At the frightened ministers. Then she gave the simplest answer of the entire meeting. Because someone needed to tell you the truth. A long silence followed. Finally, Admiral Strawn spoke. What truth? General Mira Vance folded her arms again. The galaxy has been afraid of you for centuries. She pointed to the human fleets surrounding the system. But fear only works until someone decides they are tired of it. Her voice became colder. And humans get tired very easily. Outside, hundreds of human warships locked weapons on the Imperial defense grid. Imperial targeting systems responded. Tension filled every communication channel. One wrong command would start a war large enough to burn half the sector. The Emperor looked toward the windows. Then back to the human general. You truly believe your species can defeat the Empire? She considered the question for a moment. Then she smiled. Not arrogantly, just confidently. Oh no. Another pause. We don't believe that. General RUL blinked. Then why are you here? The human general's answer was quiet. But we are absolutely willing to try. Silence. The Emperor studied her face. And, slowly, something changed in his expression, because he finally understood something the Empire had ignored. Humans were not fearless. Humans were not perfectly united. Humans were not even particularly peaceful. But they possessed one terrifying trait. When pushed far enough, they did not care how big the enemy was. They simply fought anyway. The Emperor raised one hand. Imperial targeting systems paused. Across the sky, human fleets waited. Ready. Still. Dangerous. Caldrex exhaled slowly. Then he spoke. Perhaps. The entire hall leaned forward. We should continue this conversation. General Mira Vance nodded once. That would be wise. And that is how the greatest war in galactic history never began. But every civilization in the galaxy learned something that day. If you want peace, never laugh at humans, especially when they bring their entire species with them. End of story.